Chapter 861, Keon, come home. Is there something wrong with your ears? Kwanzai shook his head with a look of pity. Are you saying that you and Lin Keon were having sex in the bathroom? Regardless of what we were doing, you don't stand a chance, Kwanzai said as he picked up his wine glass and walked away. He did not admit anything, nor did he deny it. Li clenched her fists. She felt helpless against Kwanzai's psychological torment. Even though Kwanzai did not explain things in detail, he did not give her the slightest chance. Li was not the type of person to not admit defeat. However, she hated being defeated by Lin Keon. After all, they were meant to be siblings. With this thought, Li walked over to Mother Kwan and asked softly, "Auntie, could I speak to you for a moment?" Mother Kwan nodded and walked out of the room to the garden outside. "Li, what did you want to speak about?" "Auntie, don't you feel that Zion Lin Keon's relationship is a little too close?" Li asked suggestively. "Li, they are siblings, so it's natural to be close, don't overthink it." "But, just a moment ago, I saw the two of them kissing in the bathroom," Li exaggerated with a shocked voice. "I even confronted Zai about it and he didn't deny it." Hearing this, Mother Kwan froze as her eyes grew big. "Are you sure that you weren't seeing things?" "No. When Zai was walking out of the bathroom, I even saw him wipe the lipstick from his lips." After hearing this, Mother Kwan clenched her fists angrily and stormed back into the villa. Even though there were plenty of guests and it was an important event, she didn't care as she walked straight up to Lin Keon and threw a slap across her face. The slap resounded clearly across the room, immediately drawing everyone's attention. "I brought you up not so you could seduce your brother," Mother Kwan yelled. Lin Keon did not respond to Mother Kwan's anger. Instead, she waited until Kwanzai was in front of them before she threw a slap across his face. "What are you doing?" Mother Kwan growled. "I will treat your son the way that you treat me." Lin Keon replied coldly. "I'm sorry, but I never seduced your son. Your son is the one that's been seducing me. The Kwan family brought you up. But you also tried to sell me off," Lin Keon quickly retorted. "The gratitude of bringing me up was cancelled out the moment that you tried to sell me. Yet, you still have the audacity to mention it. Either way, Kwanzai and I are not blood related. Even if I insist on being with him, there's nothing you can do." "Weren't you certain that I seduced your son?" "In that case, I'll show you how I seduce him." After she was done speaking, Lin Keon hooked her arms around Kwanzai's neck and perfectly matched her lips with his. After a few seconds, she let go and said provokingly to Mother Kwan, "As you wished." "Ugh, you are a complete slut." Mother Kwan had no choice but to yell. However, Lin Keon pushed Kwanzai aside and responded with a cold smirk, "The gratitude I have for the Kwan family officially ends today. And you, Kwanzai, you either move out of my house, or I'm moving." After speaking, Lin Keon left the villa in front of all the guests. "How disgusting." Mother Kwan was so angry that she almost had a heart attack. However, there was nothing she could do. "Kwanzai, you better explain to me what all this is about." Keon already said it all." Kwanzai shrugged at his mother. "Are you trying to get hurt again?" "That slut." "Speak, she's right, I'm the one that likes her. I've been chasing her all around the world and even became an actor because of her," Kwanzai replied swiftly. "Also, to get close to her, I even moved next door to her." "Aren't you ashamed of yourself?" Mother Kwan punched Kwanzai on the chest. "She's your sister. I don't remember you ever giving birth to a sister." After speaking to Mother Kwan, Kwanzai put down the champagne glass in his hand and turned to the guests. "I'm sorry everyone. In order to chase after Keon, I will now make my leave. You guys help yourselves." After that, Kwanzai ran out after Lin Keon. In reality, he was very thankful towards Li. If Li hadn't exposed them, he would have never known that his Keon had become so tough. The slap she gave him a moment ago wasn't fake at all. In fact, she had used all her strength. Most importantly, his Keon had learned how to protect herself. So, when he thought about Lin Keon's slap, he was not angry. Instead, he couldn't help but laugh. This time, after Mother Kwan's scolding, Kwanzai actually felt a sense of release, especially since it happened in front of so many people. Because, this was equivalent to announcing it to the whole world. From today onwards, He and Lin Qian were likely to be called an immoral couple. But for some reason, he felt that this wasn't a bad thing. Lin Qian was truly angered. Just the thought of Mother Quan made her sick. Because of this, she did not return home after leaving the villa. Instead, she ended up at Xinglan's place. She did not want to see Quanzai tonight. Seeing Lin Qian in her fancy outfit, Xinglan could guess that she had come back from a big event. But, noticing the unhappy look on her face, she did not dare to ask too much. Take me in for tonight. I don't want to go home. Because of Quanzai? Xinglan laughed. You will never understand how I feel. Lin Qian sighed. Yes, I don't understand. But, I feel that you and Quanzai have been entangled with each other for so long already. If you were to leave each other, who else would you end up with? Plus, would Quanzai actually let you go? Most importantly, how do you feel about Quanzai? You should stop lying to yourself. Lin Qian did not respond. No matter who you end up with, there will always be difficulties. Don't be naive. After speaking, Xinglan stood up and patted Lin Qian on the shoulder. I have practice tomorrow, so I won't be staying up to keep you company. You're welcome to stay, but you will eventually need to leave. Lin Qian remained silent, but the look in her eyes was a little less confused. A moment later, Lin Qian received a message from Quanzai. Qian, come home. No way. Lin Qian thought. She wasn't about to let the incident with Mother Quan go, even though she had already given Quanzai a slap. Soon, a phone call from Tangning cut into her thoughts. Your incident was so big that it's already all over the news. What? Lin Qian was shocked. Did you forget that both of you are in the entertainment industry? The news said that you were an incestual couple. Tangning laughed. Quanzai's already expressed his feelings out in the open. What about you? Are you planning to PR for Quanzai? All I need is one word from you. Chapter 862. You know that the child isn't mine. Quanzai was exposed as having a younger sister complex. On top of that, it was revealed that he was already living with Lin Qian. Seeing the gossip, Lin Qian felt her heart ache. Was Quanzai gambling with his career for the sake of their love? After dazing around at Xinglan's home for a while, Lin Qian thought long and hard about the situation. Tangning's phone call had obviously told her that she had been hiding for too long and reached a dead end, and that it was time to make a decision. In the end, Lin Qian picked up her phone, left Xinglan's home and returned to her and Qianzai's apartment. As soon as she opened the door and entered, she saw Quanzai lying on the sofa casually looking at his phone. Lin Qian cleared her throat and said to him, "We're already on the headlines. Aren't you worried at all? Qian, have you made up your mind yet?" Quanzai asked without answering as he turned around and looked directly at Lin Qian. Lin Qian froze for a second, but ended up sitting on the sofa opposite Quanzai. In the past, I couldn't tell whether my feelings for you were because we were family or because I loved you, but I figured it out last night. My dear brother, you've chased me for so many years and I've avoided you for so many years. Isn't the answer obvious? When I was young, a bit of attraction may have sprouted from my heart, but after the pain that your mother put me through, it's been completely wiped clean. You've been crossing the line continuously and have made me question whether what I feel for you is love. But after the news last night, Tangning reminded that it's time to make a decision. Logically, I felt like I should be with you, but a voice deep within my heart told me that I couldn't accept it. I think that true love isn't about compromising. If there is even the slightest bit of unwillingness in my heart, I don't think this relationship will last long. I think it's time to clarify the boundaries between us. You should think it over clearly. Lastly, Hairui will help us with the PR. If you like this apartment, I'll give it to you. After speaking, Lin Qian did not take a single glance at Quanzai as she stood up from the sofa and returned to her room to pack a few clothes. Xinglan's words left a deep impression on Lin Qian. If she let Quanzai go, would someone better appear? The answer was uncertain, but the next person could possibly be her true love. She felt that loving a person meant that she'd be willing to sacrifice anything for them, not the way that she felt about Quanzai, because in the end, Mother Quan was an obstacle that she could never get over. As he watched Lin Qian pack her belongings and leave, Quan Zai's arms dropped to his sides. She finally gave me a death sentence. Quan Zai couldn't explain how he felt at this moment. He had reached the last straw. Everything in the world suddenly felt like it had no meaning. But, this result was also a good thing. If Lin Qian really had no love for him and he forced her to stay by his side, he knew it would be much too cruel. Afterwards, Lin Qian gave Tang Ning a phone call. Ningji, help Quan Zai with his PR. Have you made up your mind? Are you going to deny any involvement with each other? Tang Ning asked in surprise. Although she had always felt that Lin Qian didn't have any deep feelings for Quan Zai, Lin Qian had been a soft person over the years. So, she thought Lin Qian was going to accept him. Of course I'm going to deny it. A relationship that works on compromise is too tiring, Lin Qian replied. Plus, I'm in no rush to find a partner. I'm currently passionate about superstar media instead. Okay, then, we'll do as you wish, Tang Ning agreed, but don't regret your decision. I won't regret it. However, before Hairu even made a move, Quan Zai stepped out and clarified the entire incident. He admitted that he did have a younger sister complex, but his relationship with Lin Qian was completely innocent. Also, he clarified that he didn't live with Lin Qian and that they were merely neighbors. He had moved closer to her to protect her because she had been getting hurt a lot recently. As for what happened at his father's birthday banquet, he admitted that he had played a joke on everyone. Because his mother kept trying to pair him up with women that he didn't like, he decided to use Lin Qian as an excuse. Although Quan Zai's explanation still made them seem ambiguous, he ended up announcing an even bigger piece of news afterwards. He had decided to temporarily retreat from the entertainment industry. This was something that both Lin Qian and Hairu had not expected. Why did artists like to retreat from the industry over every single incident these days? After making his announcement, Quan Zai avoided the rest of the interview. As for what his future held and what he planned to do, no one knew the answer to this question. Of course, after Quan Zai made his announcement, the reporters no longer found it necessary to chase someone that worked behind the scenes like Lin Qian. However, the relationship between the two still left the reporters with plenty to imagine. I thought you had made a decision to be with Quan Zai. After all, you guys have so many years of vented up feelings. But I never expected you to reject him like that. Back when you got hurt, he ran 10 red lights and ran into the hospital wearing sandals. Xinglan said. Trust me, I want more than anything for him to be happy. But, I can't possibly treat him the way that he treats me. Fine. You don't think I understand you? You're so stubborn. Xinglan patted Lin Qian on the shoulder, gesturing that she didn't need to explain. Do you want me to introduce a guy to you? How about my cousin? Although I've only met him once, but I heard that he's currently a military officer and is extremely cool. Go, 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 get back to practicing. Don't you still have a competition to compete in? Lin Qian had no expectations for love at the moment. Xinglan laughed and left for the practice room, leaving Lin Qian all alone, sighing to herself in the office. Originally, she wanted to call Quan Zai's manager and check how he was doing. But, she had already made her decision, so she couldn't worry about Quan Zai anymore. If she did, then people would look down on her. In this lifetime, she owed Quan Zai too much. Her only choice was to pay him back in their next life. By the time that Tang Ning completely invested herself in the production of director Qian's sci-fi film, Lin Qian's matter had just stabilized. Since Zai Hanmu was still on vacation overseas, Lin Qian decided to join her. Meanwhile, Long Ji continued to manage Luo Wuxing. Because Luo Wuxing was a hard worker, he was advancing in leaps and bounds within the industry. By now, he already learned how to negotiate most of his own jobs. In terms of work, the three women were managing fine. However, at home, Long Ji was having problems. She had received news from Mother Lu that the test tube baby was ready and Lu Che was about to have a son. Although Long Ji knew that the baby didn't belong to Lu Che, hearing Mother Lu's words still made her upset. I think that your mother's very simple-minded. She thinks that if you have a son, you will be obedient towards her again. She will definitely use the child to blackmail you. You know that the child isn't mine, Lu Che replied. After it's born, someone will naturally take claim. Chapter 863, Tang Ning, Luo Wuxing's ruined. It's easy to say that, But there's honestly no end to your mother. Does she want to control our lives so badly? She stopped being my mother a long time ago, Luce replied coldly. After hearing this, Longji suddenly felt pity for her husband. Sometimes, family members were like this, but one couldn't choose their own family. So, she stretched out her arms and gave Luce a hug. Luce did not want to continue with this depressing topic, so he naturally changed the subject. Now that the madam is invested in film production, it will consume at least a year of her time. What's happening with Superstar Media? Doesn't she intend to sign another artist? I haven't asked her about it. If she succeeds with this project, her status in the film industry may possibly exceed some of the most creative and artistic people. A sci-fi film is like a black hole. Others are too afraid to touch it. Even Haru needed to hesitate, yet she jumped headfirst into it. Isn't this typical of Tangning? Longji laughed. Now that I think about it, I can actually step up and go find some artists on my own. I can work harder and make your mother regret that she ever looked down on me. You don't need to do that. As long as we are happy, that's all that matters. These words were easy to say, but this was because he had never experienced being looked down upon by people. On the other hand, for Longji, making Luce's mother regret was something that she had to do. Perhaps Luce understood this, so he did not stop her. The couple hugged each other tightly, joining at their hearts. At this time, Longji received a phone call from Luosheng. His voice was slightly excited. Longji, I am going to negotiate a role in a big IP production for next year. I may need to meet with a few people. Could you please get some time off from my current drama for me? Leave it with me, you don't need to personally go. But I want to go. Have you done your research and fully understood it? Don't worry, I know what I'm doing, Luosheng said confidently. After all, he had already built a network of contacts in the industry. Otherwise, he couldn't have possibly secured a big project like Red Flame. However, Longji wasn't completely convinced. On the surface, she did not stop Luosheng, but in private, she looked into the script of Derivative. She discovered that it was a super IP. The script was fine, but what about the production team behind it? The person that Luosheng was meeting with was the investor of the film, a person also with the surname Luo, a professor in the US. But, at this moment, this was all that Longji knew. So, there was no way she could stop Luosheng in time. A few days later, Luosheng told Longji that he had already secured the male lead of the new IP drama. However, from Longji's understanding, nothing was actually happening with the project. In the end, Longji helplessly reported the matter to Tangning. Luosheng will be meeting the investor again tonight. On the surface, it appears exactly as it sounds, but for some reason, I have a feeling that something isn't quite right. Tangning, help me analyze the situation. Accompany Luosheng there tonight. I was planning to do that, that's why I gave Luosheng a phone call, but he hasn't picked up. Longji was a little worried. I also gave the set a phone call, but the director said he didn't see Luosheng tonight. Am I not being responsible enough towards Luosheng? Give Luce a phone call and tell him to find out where the man with the surname Luo is. Okay, I'll immediately make a phone call. Longji wanted to head out. However, the rain prevented her from going outside. Either way, even if she was to go out and look for Luosheng, she didn't know where to begin anyway. Longji suddenly felt really guilty as Luosheng's confident expression appeared in her mind. Time ticked by, minute by minute. Luce tried his best to investigate where Luosheng was, but it wasn't until late at night before he finally reported back to Longji that Luosheng wasn't at the investor's house. Longji immediately rushed out into the rain. But, just as she boarded her car, her phone finally began to vibrate. However, when she picked up, she realized it was the police calling. Hello, are you Luosheng's family member? This is the police calling. The police. Longji immediately drove over to the police station, only to find Luosheng sitting inside, soaked to the bone, hugging his knees. What's this all about? Longji asked the police. We found him on the side of the road. His head appeared injured and he couldn't recognize anyone, so we found your contact through his phone and called you. Hurry and take him to the hospital. Longji looked at Luosheng in shock. As she noticed his bloody right eye, she felt a piercing pain in her heart. Soon, Longji delivered Luosheng to the nearby hospital. According to the doctor's diagnosis, Luosheng had been hit in the head by a hard falling object. The worst outcome would be for him to remain confused like this forever. After hearing this, Long Ji stepped back in shock. Please try your best to fix him. He is an actor with a promising future. Miss Long, we will try our best, but we can't guarantee anything. Long Ji froze as she stared at Luosheng, who was laying in the hospital bed, and held back her emotions. Only after she stepped out of the hospital room did she begin to cry. Afterwards, she gave Tangning a phone call. Tangning, Luosheng's ruined. Tangning had just coaxed the two kids to sleep when she heard from Long Ji. After hanging up the phone, she rushed straight to the hospital. Not only had Luosheng's brain been damaged, his right eye was also affected. What will Luosheng do from now on? How will I explain this to his parents? Tangning glanced at Luosheng before she pulled out her phone and called Tang Yigan. Sis, I have an artist that's been seriously injured. You're the only person I can rely on. If you have a patient, then send them straight to me. Even if you weren't my sister, I wouldn't just sit idly by. Tang Yigan immediately replied. I'll transfer him straight away then. Okay. Tang Yigan hung up the phone and walked into Lu Guanglai's office. She then leaned on his desk and said, a patient will be delivered here in a moment. Will you help me treat him? Lu Guanglai put down the medical journal in his hands and glanced at Tang Yigan. No. Tangning immediately signed Luosheng's transfer papers and placed all her focus on finding the truth behind what happened. Although she knew that Luosheng had recently made a lot of enemies, it really angered her to know that someone had gone this far. A broken bar. Either way, if someone had instigated Luosheng's attack, then there was no way they could keep it hidden. It wasn't easy for Luosheng to get to where he was today. If he had to retreat from the industry to recover, it would be equivalent to starting all over again. Tangning knew that Long Ji had been truly frightened and felt extremely guilty. But, apart from helping Luosheng recover and keeping his career stable, there was nothing else she could do. Soon, Luosheng arrived at Tang Yigan's hospital. After admitting Luosheng, Tang Yigan asked Tangning and the others to wait outside the emergency room while she examined him. Chapter 864, Don't anyone dare provoke my woman. As Luosheng's manager, you need to first remain calm. Tangning tried to give Long Ji strength after seeing her in a panic. I screwed up. There's no point chasing anyone for responsibility. Tangning held onto Long Ji's shoulders and forced her to look at her. Listen to me. I order you to protect Luosheng's career and recover his confidence. Can you do that? Long Ji looked dead straight into Tangning's eyes. After quite some time, she finally nodded. Yes, I can do it. After agreeing, Long Ji tugged on Tangning's sleeves and begged, we definitely need to find the culprit. Of course, Tangning nodded in seriousness. Soon, Tang Yigan stepped out of the emergency room and removed her face mask. She then approached Tangning and said, I'll be honest with you. His condition is worse than you think. I'm going to go find Lu Guanglai. He needs to perform a surgery, or else Luosheng may even lose his right eye. This was no falling object. Otherwise, how could it have hit his eye? This was caused by close impact. Hurry! Tang Yigan quickly left and stormed into Lu Guanglai's office. Dr. Lu, I have an especially complex surgery. Lu Guanglai lifted his head and glanced at Tang Yigan coldly. I've already finished my shift. But, he's honestly injured really badly. No one else can perform this surgery. Tang Yigan looked at Lu Guanglai in seriousness. Her voice even contained a slight tremble. Lu Guanglai was a little surprised. In the end, he stood up and said, Get my cloak. With Lu Guanglai's help, Tangning relaxed and gave Mo Ting a phone call. She then explained everything that happened to him. Where are you? I'll come pick you up right now. Tangning gave Mo Ting the hospital's address and Mo Ting soon arrived at the entrance of the hospital. I've already asked Lu Che to investigate the investor of the drama and I've also called the police to seize any security footage in the area. But, since it's a rainy day, finding the culprit will be a lot harder than usual. Tangning boarded Mo Ting's car, strapped on her seatbelt and said calmly, but, no matter what, I will definitely get to the bottom of this incident. In the coming days, I'm sure the media will make a big fuss and write about this matter. You need to prepare yourself. Nothing can be truly hidden. Yes, Tangning's heart ached for Luosheng. He was so young, yet he had to suffer in such a way. I was too reckless. I didn't think enough from his point of view. It was my fault. Ning. Moting stopped the car on the side of the road and turned to comfort her. The most important thing now, is to figure out how to deal with this matter. Tang Ning was actually afraid, but she couldn't break down in front Long Ji. However, in front of Moting, she could let herself go and rely on him. The other party's motive wasn't simply to ruin Luo Xing's future in acting. They also wanted to disfigure him. All the actors that lost jobs to Luo Xing are worthy of suspicion. But of course, our main focus is the investor. If we find out which actors have a good relationship with him, I'm sure we'll be able to confirm what happened. Understood? Tang Ning turned, looked into Moting's eyes and nodded her head. Don't worry, I will definitely find the truth and make the other party suffer. As for the PR, you can decide on that yourself. They knew that as soon as the news revealed this story, the film that Luo Xing was working on, would definitely replace him. As for his other resources, he would lose them all as well. But, if they were to hide this incident and it got exposed, their situation would be even worse. So, Tang Ning decided to jump in first and tell the story from their point of view, so the public would retain some sympathy for Luo Xing. That way, they could still salvage the situation. By the time the 2-hour surgery was finished, it was already 2 a.m. Lu Guanglai exited the emergency room, removed his mask and said to Tang Yigan, I saved his eye, but he will have a scar on his forehead. If he wants to fix it with cosmetic surgery, he will need to wait a while. We have to wait until he's recovered. And that will take roughly 6 months. Also, the blood in his brain has been cleared, but no one can guarantee if he will recover. According to the appearance of his injury, I believe he was hit in the head with a piece of wood. You can look into this and see if you can find evidence. Thank you, Dr. Lu. Long Ji immediately thanked him. Lu Guanglai looked at Tang Yigan as if asking her if she was satisfied. He then removed his gloves and left the room. Tang Yigan took a deep breath and patted Long Ji on the shoulder. Luckily, we managed to save his eye. Don't worry, Dr. Li's words weren't very nice, but he's actually telling you that Luo Xing should be able to recover. He just needs some time. Really? Long Ji immediately lifted her head and asked. Yes. You don't need to worry about Dr. Li's abilities. Focus on helping Luo Xing recover instead. After speaking, Tang Yigan chased after Lu Guanglai. Meanwhile, Long Ji entered Luo Xing's hospital room and glanced down at his pale face. She almost broke down in tears at the sight of him. Because Luo Xing did not wake up. What exactly happened for Luo Xing to suffer this kind of inhumane torment? With Moting's pointers, Tang Ning quickly calmed down. She knew that if she fell into a panic at this time, Luo Xing's situation would be even worse than it currently was. So, the first thing that Tang Ning did was call the director of A Red Flame and tell him everything that happened that night. I don't know when Luo Xing will be able to return on set. So, it's understandable to replace the male lead. But, could the director please promise me that you will not give up on Luo Xing until the very end? I'm sure you know what happened. If the other party benefits, the industry will learn to use violence when securing jobs. I'm sure you don't want to see that happen. I will never give up on Luo Xing no matter what becomes of him. Since I was capable of salvaging his career once, I can do it again. After hearing Tang Ning's words, the director thought long and hard. I can't guarantee you other things. But, as long as I'm the director of Red Flame, I can promise you that I persist until the end. I will wait for Luo Xing. Thank you, director. You don't need to thank me. I trust in your abilities. Rather than offending you, I'd rather exchange our trust. At least that's better than attacking each other, the director replied. Plus, Luo Xing's actually a very hard worker. It's rare to see an actor like him. I will take extra notice of any actors that try to steal the male lead of Red Flame. This will likely help you with your investigation, the director offered. Thank you, director. Tang Ning thanked sincerely. You're doing the right thing. Mo Ting sat nearby and held onto Tang Ning's hand. Don't anyone dare provoke my woman. Chapter 865. Why are you doubting yourself? Luo Xing was injured because he had gone to see the investor of derivative. So, it only made sense for Tang Ning to speak to this man by the surname of Luo. But, according to the initial investigation of the police, Luosheng was attacked before he even arrived at the man's home. As for the reason why he stopped his car halfway and what happened during the time that he stopped, the police had no way of finding this out. After all, it was a rainy day, so it was hard to retain evidence. Plus, that particular stretch of road had no government-issued surveillance cameras. If Luosheng couldn't tell them what happened, no one would ever know the truth. The next day, news of Luosheng's disfigurement quickly spread throughout the city. An artist that had a promising future was suddenly disfigured. Wasn't the timing too coincidental? People in the industry were surprised. But, when they thought about the situation in detail, they realized it was all within their expectations. After all, Tang Ning attracted too much hatred. So, being attacked was unavoidable. Everyone appeared to feel sympathy for Luosheng, but in secret, it was uncertain how many people were actually treating the incident as a joke. After all, Luosheng represented Tang Ning. So, for Luosheng to suffer a fall like this, meant that outsiders could now point at Tang Ning and criticize her. Look, this is the fate of Tang Ning's artists. Didn't Tang Ning refer to herself as a talent scout? What happened in the end? Didn't her artist fall at the flip of a switch? Tang Ning's still not that capable. Tang Ning was prepared for the public to judge her, so she simply continued trying to contact the investor. The man wasn't easy to get a hold of. It took Long Ji multiple attempts before she finally secured a dinner with him. After that, Long Ji kept Luosheng company at the hospital while Tang Ning and Lin Qian went to meet the investor at a designated hotel. As soon as she saw the man, Tang Ning was quite surprised. He was in his 40s, but he maintained his appearance well, looking handsome and noble, nothing like a typical villain. "Mrs. Mo, I've heard so much about you." Tang Ning sat down opposite the man and spoke to him with her usual straightforwardness. "I'm sure Mr. Luo knows why I'm here." "Of course. But I'm sorry, this incident has nothing to do with me." The man smiled. "I sympathize with Luosheng's fate, but I did not plan this attack." "But he was attacked on the way to meeting with you." "Mrs. Mo, are you trying to slander me?" The man laughed. "Since the conversation has gone down this path, I also have a few things to say. I would like to offer Mrs. Mo a piece of advice. Your so-called talent scouting is destructive towards the normal operations of the industry. Since you broke the rules and regulations, isn't it normal to receive revenge? I'm sure President Mo must love you a lot. That's why he let you maintain such a naive ideal without stopping you. But reality has always been harsh. Hasn't President Mo ever told you that you're too much of an idealist? Luosheng's fate today will be the same fate that your other artists will eventually face. Just wait and see. This industry is all about luck and support. You can't even guarantee your own future with your so-called fairness. So, how could you guarantee it for others?" As for Luosheng, he could have lived a peaceful life. But, how did he end up getting disfigured? Wasn't it all because of you? President Mo is willing to love and dote on you, but the industry will never go easy on anyone. This is the truth that you asked for. Are you happy with this answer? I hope it was worth you showing up here. The man laughed. His words were merciless, without an ounce of emotion. But, every single word pierced deep into Tang Ning's heart. All the while, Luosheng had not woken up yet, and his parents had just received the news. Soon, the man left and Tang Ning did not stick around either. What did he say? Lin Qian chased after Tang Ning and asked. "I didn't get anything useful out of him." "Let's go," Tang Ning said tiredly. Lin Qian did not see anything odd about Tang Ning. She simply felt pity for Luosheng. He was attacked in the rain, yet the culprit couldn't be found. Soon, a phone call arrived from the set of Red Flame. The crew decided to replace Luosheng because they realized he wasn't just injured, he was disfigured. They claimed that they did not have the resources to continue waiting. But, it was only yesterday that they had promised to wait for him. Yet, after seeing the reactions from the public, the director immediately changed his mind. Was this an example of being taught a lesson by the industry? It didn't take long before Tang Ning returned home. As soon as she saw Mo Ting, she immediately hugged him from behind and did not say a word. "What's wrong?" Although Mo Ting didn't know what had happened, he could feel the sense of defeat coming from Tang Ning's body. "Ting, do you think that a lot of my actions and thoughts are extremely childish, including my decision to establish Superstar Media and invest in a sci-fi film?" Mo Ting understood what Tang Ning was trying to ask. So, he turned around and looked at her, I never take your decisions lightly because no one knows what you're capable of as well as I do. But, I suddenly feel like I've been fighting against heavy odds. Moting furrowed his brows. Why are you doubting yourself? Is it because Luoxing was attacked? Do you know the reason for your uninterrupted success up until this point? Tang Ning replied. You're wrong. It's because of your confidence to win. Moting corrected. Tang Ning suddenly fell silent. She had gotten over so many obstacles in the past. Yet, she was suddenly doubting herself over someone else's words. After hearing Moting's words, Tang Ning smiled and kissed him on his lips. You always manage to make me see myself clearly. Afterwards, Tang Ning gave the investor a phone call. This time, she didn't wait for the man to speak before she said, Mr. Luo, your point of view may contain some truths, but I'm sorry, I can't possibly agree with you. Our beliefs are different. My eventual aim is indeed to change the entertainment industry. But, I'm in no rush. I know the importance of gradual progression. Luoxing has temporarily met a bottleneck, but I can help him return to where he was before. In fact, he may surpass it. I will continue to investigate Luoxing's matter until I find the truth. And Mr. Luo, you're the biggest suspect. You like to work under the table. I like to ensure fairness. It's not a matter of who's right and who's wrong. It is all a matter of choice. The man obviously didn't expect Tang Ning to say such words to him. She was indeed not easy to deal with. After a gentle laugh, the investor gave Tang Ning a tip. Luoxing was injured inside an estate. You can ask around and see if any of the property owners have security footage of how Luoxing was injured. If you manage to find one, then you will know the truth.
Hit the like, thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for listening.